But to the war in Ukraine, General, and again, I have to say, US politics is intruding here as well, the civil war among the Republicans in Congress. That has meant that $6 billion in aid for Ukraine, that President Biden wanted to send over there, has been carved out of a spending bill passed in Congress on Saturday, an emergency bill to keep government going. So that $6 billion still has not been approved by Congress. President Biden is now ringing allies around the world to say, don't worry, we're still standing by Ukraine, the money will still come. But how worried should we or the rest of the world be that support for Ukraine is running out, at least in the US? And what difference would that make on the battlefield?
Well, a couple of factors. First of all, the United States still has $5.2 billion that it hasn't spent on Ukraine yet. So that money will last for another 2 to 3 months. The United States government continuing resolution for our Australian audience means that they've extended the government for 45 days on a temporary basis, and they're going to vote again, hopefully with an appropriate budget to continue the government going forward. But the reality is there is continuing money, so there's no reason for Ukraine to go off the cliff or something because they're not going to get weapons. That's going to continue. Now, there's no disputing the fact that there's opposition in the Republican Party in the United States, particularly in the House of Representatives, to funding Ukraine. However, the majority of the House of Representatives, there's 433 members there, 311 of them are on record for supporting Ukraine. Democrats and Republicans, with a vocal minority opposing it, mostly Republicans. In the Senate of the United States, bipartisan support for Ukraine, non-issue. So if you put two houses together, there is bipartisan support and funding going forward. And I think that's why President Biden has some confidence that down the road, the funding will continue. Now, I'm not hiding the fact that there is opposition in the United States for continued funding. But it is not a majority, it is a minority, and like a lot of minorities, issues in politics, they're very vocal and they get a lot of attention.
Yes, the factor here, though, that could play a role is whether Donald Trump gets elected president next year. He's making very ambiguous noises about support for Ukraine, but I won't drag you into that particular controversy. We'll face that when we get to it. American officials are now saying, well, look, Russian President Vladimir Putin is watching all this very carefully, probably with glee, and he wants to try to end US support from Ukraine by using his spy agencies and new technologies to push propaganda and conspiracy theories. And I've been seeing some of this pop up on the internet. Do you believe that? Is it effective? And if it is effective, how much damage could that do to America's reputation?
Well, Russia, led by Vladimir Putin, has been involved in American politics and American opinion ever since he took charge over 20 years ago. And he played an instrumental role in the 2016 election and the 2020 election as well, where he got very much involved with information campaigns. He is conducting, according to my sources, a massive information campaign in the United States as we speak to influence politicians, the media, the American people writ large, to not fund the war in Ukraine. He knows full well that Ukrainian success is tied to the United States-led coalition in providing support for Ukraine. They wouldn't be where they are today without that support. And if he can get the United States to take a knee, and the Europeans as well, then Putin will have what he wants. It'll be a protracted war where he believes over time, because he has more people, and therefore he will also have more equipment, if the equipment begins to dry up, that he will win in the long run. That would be an absolute strategic defeat for the United States and the Europeans and those who are supporting Ukraine. And we've got to stand up to it. We've got to recognize it for what it is and continue to support the Ukrainians.
General Keane, always great to talk to you. Thank you so much. Sobering though your analysis is. Thank you.
Yeah, great talking to you, Andrew, as always.